Hello, Professor. This is Kevin Yee. This is going to be our video submission for the final project initial results assignment. I'm doing this alongside students Stephen Djordjevic and Connor Hubble. Our project is titled, Which Historical Figure Are You? We pivoted from the Which Muppets Are You? And we also pivoted from using Google Forms to using a platform called tally.so. So just to remind you of our overall project, the purpose of our project is to create an online personality quiz using the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the MBTI, to sort of simulate those common social media quizzes that you can find online, like the which Disney princess are you, or which character are you, or which Love Island cast member are you, like things like that. The purpose of this is to educate users on how seemingly innocuous quizzes online that you may be taking just for fun to get a result sometimes can have malicious intentions and can harvest personal information from you if you're not careful. We also want to make sure we're educating and showing the users how psychological principles like liking, curiosity, authority, reciprocity, scarcity, social proof, and commitment consistency all kind of fit in and can influence users' oversharing. And these are all psychological principles found in Robert Cialdini's book. Importantly, we also want to make sure that this is purely educational and that we're staying within ethical boundaries. We're using clearly labeling the sort of malicious style questions that are being implemented in the quiz, and emphasizing that we're doing this for awareness and education purposes. This is something we implemented at the very, very top of the quiz. We have a very, very large warning along with a kind of brick of information of text that explains the purpose of this. And we're also making sure that we store this information and keep it stored for an ethical amount of time. So here are a summary of our initial results. So this is an early sample. We have about 9 responses. We wanted to make sure we did a little test run first to make sure everything was sort of functioning as intended, that we weren't storing anything that we weren't meaning to store, staying within our ethical boundaries, and making sure that users were not could not possibly accidentally misunderstand the purpose of our quiz. The quiz logistically functions as intended. A user can fill out the questions. They will be assigned an MBTI score, and then that will point to another page to assign them a historical figure. But more importantly, we also snuck in those sensitive questions, again, clearly labeled, to simulate what this might look like in a real online quiz. That would be sort of a question a user might not want to fill out. And again, to highlight, we put at the very top of the page for these questions that are marked to not provide any true information. And thankfully, we haven't gotten any of that yet. Despite all of these precautions, we did have some users, or I should say user, that still expressed suspicion despite warnings. Valuable, and this is valuable for kind of awareness training. It's important to know that despite even all these things, it's entirely possible that a person might click this link that has been recommended by a friend, skip reading all of the sort of warnings and things like that, and mistake questions for saying, oh, even my browser's warning me that this is bad questions. Why did my friend send me this? So this is important, and we somehow need to come up with a method to ensure that there's the very, very least possible chance that a user could somehow mistake this as malicious, and really make sure we hammer that home to make it foolproof. Data was collected successfully. We have responses to those sensitive questions. Thankfully, most, or I should say all users who did answer those questions did not provide, from what I could see, any sort of information that could be potentially compromising or seen as like true personal information. Along with this, the platform that we're using, tally.so, does passively gather informations on those who are taking the quizzes without us really having to do much. This includes user locations like Tucson, Dallas, or Livonia, and also the traffic sources. So where they're arriving at this quiz from, whether it's from like direct link, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, kind of things like that. Also, really cool, it tracks meta information about the user's device that they're using. So it could be mobile or desktop, what browser they're using. It could be like Chrome, Firefox, or Edge. What operating system they're using, like Windows, Mac, or Android, or something like that. Yeah. So we have all this information gathered. It's giving us, now that we're kind of have a dry one and we got everything kind of assembled properly, we just need to work on smarter security measures and provide a little bit more things you find here in the next steps. A debrief page would be helpful. That's something we've had the idea, and now that we've kind of ensure that this is working properly, we can add a page to really get into the nitty-gritty of the psychological principles used to provide the user with more education and more awareness, so that they're better prepared when they take quizzes like this, and if they decide to take quizzes like this online in the future. Now is the time also to increase our distribution to collect more data. Our sort of first attempt was a link through an Instagram story, and we have one Instagram post, and we also provided some direct links, and we shared it sparingly on Facebook. But now is the time we're really going to be hitting home this week to try to send this out as much as we can to gather more data. The last thing we're going to do is make sure we really try to improve the clarity for the educational awareness purpose, despite our previous efforts of really trying to make it very obvious. There was a user who managed to slip through that and still thought that this quiz was malicious. We really don't want that. So that's something we're going to have to work on. This next slide is just a screenshot here of some of the dashboard stats that our platform Tele.so provides. As I mentioned, you can see some of the visits, the unique visits, our total quiz submissions, the average duration the person is there, desktop versus mobile, sources, the countries, the cities, the operating systems, and the browsers. This is all passive information that we're gaining right now. And it'll be useful to present this when we give our final presentation, so to make it obvious for people who might be unaware, like, hey, if you take an online quiz, people might be gathering this information about you already, and they likely are. So this is a imported CSV of an exported CSV of the question responses from our quiz. You can see below that there are counts for each of the scores relating to each of the areas in the MBTI quiz, as well as question 2, question 3, question 4, sort of the strongly agree all the way down to strongly disagree. And littered throughout those questions, you can see these sort of longer form questions here that are labeled potentially risky data collection. Those are our questions for which a user would could provide information that would be possibly malicious, or possibly personal identifying information. For the sake of this presentation, I went ahead and blocked out all of those, despite that they were likely nonsense answers. I just went ahead and did that anyways, just to protect people's privacy. So as you can see, that's our more of our data. We're going to get into our question analysis now. Each of us had to choose a question related to our quiz and sort of briefly talk about it. So this first question is chosen by Stephen Djordjevic. His question that he chose was, what month were you born in? That was one of the questions on our quiz. This is, again, available information that you can find online publicly, but we're not trying to gather anything that's too personal in this quiz, so we thought a birthday would be something that is pretty low stakes. So he answers the question, why did he choose this? He wrote, the question appears harmless, but it could help reconstruct a full date of birth when combined with other answers. Totally could. It's also commonly used in identity verification. Psychological principle. He chose reciprocity. The question is commonly used in horoscopes and other online quizzes presented in playful settings. Basically, I will give you information you want about yourself if you give me information about yourself in return. The data extracted, partial date of birth, PII, sometimes used in account recovery or identity verification. And he answered, why is this effective? Because users want accurate results on their quiz. They are disarmed by its casual nature and are more likely to overshare. I agree with that. Next up was my question that I answered. The question I chose was, what is the name of your most revered or infamous childhood friend who shared in your earliest adventures? keep in mind the kind of theme here is with the historical figures, and we're trying to use playful language here. So basically what this question is boiling down to is, what is the name of your childhood best friend? At least kind of like that's what I thought. The reason why I chose this is because this is one of the kind of potential security questions that you see a lot when you're in account recovery or password recovery. So having gathered this information, if you know other information about this user, you may be able to trick the system into thinking that this is the actual user and enter a password or account recovery and essentially break into their account. It demonstrates how playful language can disarm users. The psychological principles I ascribed to this was liking, nostalgia, curiosity, and emotional anchoring. The data that we're extracting from this question is, like I said, potential security question answers, and also real names or identifiers that can be used in targeted attacks. So for instance, if you link their answer with their identity, that's information that you could use outside for other different attacks, either by impersonating this person or maybe saying that they know this person that they provided the name of. Why is it effective? Users overshare when emotionally engaged, and also I feel like there's also a sort of sense of commitment and like this kind of sunken cost of being this far in the quiz, wanting to find out who just your historical figure is already, so just answering the question. And the kind of setting of a personality quiz framing lowers your critical thinking if it's kind of a low stakes situation, and it's kind of like a fun thing like this. Let's see what Connor Hubble provided. His question was, which institution, e.g. a university, a great library and academy, would you have chosen to hone your skills? Again, Connor's using that sort of playful language that ties neatly with the sort of like historical figure kind of theme for our quiz. Essentially, what I think the question he's getting at is kind of which college do you go to, or what's the name of your first school that you attended, or things like that. Definitely could be a security question in account recovery or password recovery. He wrote, why is he chosen? Presents as an innocent question and seems on topic with the quiz theme. Yep. Can be used to gather location data. Yes, could absolutely be used to gather location data and build a profile on the individual. Psychological principles, curiosity, liking. This is something that people commonly ask when you're getting to know you and would be seen a lot on various questionnaires. It's a very common question, could be used a lot. You can get a lot of information. Data extracted, possible location data, information that can be used to narrow a search for more sensitive data, providing their name and their place of school could really narrow the scope on an individual person. He says, why is this effective? Commonly asked questions that users may not think much of. And the quiz framing leads to the users being curious and lowering their guard. The framing and the context of this quiz kind of lowers their critical thinking. That's really all we have right now. We're going to gather more data on this. These are our initial results. Thank you so much for listening if you did, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks.